Good morning, Mr. Halley. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning. We're ready. I see we have had quite a few technical hitches. Mr. Halley, are we ready?
We are ready to proceed now, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, today's evidence would relate to Colonel W.S. Mhlongo. You may recall that he was implicated by General Johan Boysen relating to an affidavit that Mr. Boysen or that General Boysen attached to his affidavit. That affidavit being of Mr. Terence Dube. You'll recall that Mr. Dube has testified, and Mr. Colonel Mhlongo started to testify on the last occasion. I believe it was the 2nd of March. But unfortunately, we ran out of time, and you indicated that we would have to arrange for him to complete his testimony. Today is the date for the completion of that testimony. I understand that he's still represented by Advocate Manela today, and there will be an interpreter that he will interpret through.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Will his counsel place himself on record, please?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Yes, I confirm I still appear on behalf of Mr. Mhlongo, Colonel Mhlongo, and that I'm instructed by Maringa attorneys.
Yes, just mention your name again.
It's Manala M.E.
Yes, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is our interpreter Mr. Mzoto?
That is so, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Mzoto, are you there?
I am, Chair. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for availing yourself. Let's just do the oath again. Please just state your full names again, Mr. Mzoto.
It's Kulegani Dumolwakhe Mzoto.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
I do not, Chair.
Yes. Do you consider it binding on your conscience?
I do.
Yes. Do you swear that you are proficient in English and in isiZulu, and that you are able to interpret / translate from English to isiZulu and vice versa, and that if you are called upon to translate or interpret from isiZulu to English and from English to isiZulu, in these proceedings you undertake to do so to the best of your knowledge and ability and honestly?
Yes, I do, Chair.
Raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you, Mr. Mzoto. You are duly sworn in. Okay. Mr. Halley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You may proceed, maybe just in 1 or 2 sentences. You can, for the benefit of the public, mention what the real issues are that we are going to cover in with Mr. or Colonel Mhlongo's evidence. As I recall, the real issue was that it had been, I think, General Boysen had testified that or rather, Mr. Jubber had testified that Colonel Mhlongo had told him certain things which, if true, would implicate Advocate Jiba about Mr. Ngasana. Is that right?
That's correct. That is
Yeah.
correct.
Do you want to just cover that in 2 or 3 sentences before we continue?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in a nutshell, insofar as the dispute between Mr. Jubber and Colonel Mhlongo is concerned, according to Mr. Jubber, he had had a discussion with Colonel Mhlongo in which Colonel Mhlongo had indicated to him, that is to Mr. Jubber, that it was the intention, on the instructions of Advocate Jiba, to find dirt on Mr. Ngasana, who was at that stage the newly appointed National Director of Public Prosecutions. To place that in context, you may recall that Advocate Jiba had been the acting National Director of Public Prosecutions. And after her acting appointment came to an end, and Mr. Ngasana had been appointed to take over the role of the National Director of Public Prosecutions. So that, in a nutshell, is what the issue was about and what transpired in those conversations that took place between Colonel Mhlongo and Mr. Jubber.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. And then the registrar can swear in the witness. Please administer the oath, registrar, to the witness.
Colonel Mhlongo, will you be taking the oath of the affirmation?
Mnumzane Mhlongo, ngabe uzothatha isifungo noma uzoqinisekisa ngokupheleleyo?
Successful.
I'll take the oath.
Please state your full names for the record.
So cela usiphe amagama akho aphelele nesibongo.
Amagama ami ngu Welcome Sithembiso Mhlongo.
Names are Welcome Sithembiso Mhlongo.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
Interpreter?
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Hang on. Mr. Interpreter, can you hear the registrar? I think there is a problem.
I think this is the problem we were having before, Mr. Chair. That's why we took so long to start.
Yeah. Yeah, and we don't know what's causing it.
Don't know. Unfortunately, I can't be of any assistance when it comes to technology.
Yeah. I've got somebody who is a technician this side, but he can only check if there is a problem from this side, as I understand the position. A registrar, could you ask him to come and check and be able to tell whether it's a problem that can be from this side or whether it's not this side? Can you hear us now, Mr. Mzoto? No, he still can't hear us. He's on his side. Oh, is that so? Mr. Mzoto, can you hear me now? No, he can't hear. Mr. Halley, you can still hear me, eh?
I can hear you clearly, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Wait, this is going to be a problem now. I'm not sure. Maybe we should adjourn. Maybe we should adjourn to try and see whether the problem can be fixed to enable us to continue until we finish without it coming up. Yeah. Okay, I think let's adjourn, and the technical people can try and find out how to fix it. But I don't want a situation where it's fixed for 5 minutes, we start, and then we have to adjourn again. If it can't be fixed properly, we might have to see what else can be done.
I see Mr. Mzotwa has sent a message to the effect that he can hear us now, but his screen had frozen for a while.
Mr. Mzotwa, can you hear me?
I can, DC Chair, yes. Everything had just went frozen minutes ago.
And do you know whether there is any particular problem from your side?
None that I can see from the look of things. It froze when the registrar was administering an oath.
Yeah. Okay, let's hope it's going to be fine now. Let the registrar start afresh with the oath, and then hopefully we'll be able to continue. Registrar, just start afresh with administering the oath.
Please state your full names for the record.
Welcome Sithembiso Mhlongo.
Names are Welcome Sithembiso.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
Ingabe uzoba nayo inkinga yokuthatha isifungo sokukhuluma iqiniso?
Cha, anginayo. Cha,
I do
anginayo.
not.
Do you oath binding on your conscience?
Ingabe isifungo usithatha
Hang on, is there a delay in people being heard? Registrar, is there a delay before you hear what the witness is saying?
Yes, Chairperson, there's a delay.
When I'm speaking, is there a delay as well?
It seems to be fine now.
Oh, okay. Okay, I think just repeat the last question to the witness.
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
ingabe isifungo usithatha njenga leso sikubophezelayo ukunembeza wakho ukuthi ukhulume lona iqiniso?
Yebo kunjalo.
Yes, I do.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
Ingabe uyafunga ukuthi ubufakazi ozobethula buzokuba yiqiniso, iqiniso lonke neqiniso lodwa? Uma kunjalo, siyocela ukuthi uphakamise isandla sakho sokudla uthi inkosi ngisiza.
Inkosi ngisiza.
So help me God.
Thank you, Colonel Mhlongo. Okay, let's continue then, Mr. Halley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colonel, welcome back. On the last occasion that you testified, we were at a point where we were going to move on to your to the transcript of a conversation which occurred between you and Mr. Jubei. You indicated, of course, that that conversation took place on the 25th of November of 2013. Do you recall what I'm referring to?
Yes.
Allow the interpreter to interpret.
Uzokhumbula lapha mnumzana uMhlongo ukuthi uqhutshekwa odabeni lapho khulume khona ukuthi kunenkulumo eyabakhona phakathi kwakho nomnumzane uJubei nokuthi ke leyo nkulumo yabakhona mhla ka 25 kuNovember ka 2013. Ngabe usakhumbula lokho?
Yebo ngisakukhumbula.
Yes, I can remember that, Chair.
Before we go into the transcript and the aspects of the transcript that I would like you to deal with, perhaps we can just start with, to place the transcript itself in context. Perhaps we can start off with the affidavit of a Miss Queen Mhlongo. Do you recall that affidavit?
Mhlambe ngaphambi kokuthi kubhekwe lokho okungamaphepha aqukethe lokho okuyinkulumo yabakhona phakathi kwakho nomnumzane uDube, mhlambe ngafanele sithi ukucacisa kuqala izimo ezikhona ezimaqondana naleyo nkulumo. Mhlambe singaqala ngephuzu lencwadi efungelwe kaQueen Mhlongo. Ngabe khona uyayikhumbula leyo ncwadi efungelwe kaQueen Mhlongo?
Yebo ngiyakhumbula ngoba yathunyelwa yimi.
Yes, Chair, I do remember that affidavit because I'm the one who sent it.
No, yathunyelwa yimi. Yathunyelwa yimi.
Yathunyelwa.
Yebo, by commission.
Yes, Chair, I beg your pardon, Chair. I do remember that affidavit because it was sent to me by the commission.
And in fact, you filed a response to that affidavit, is that correct?
Ingabe kuliqiniso ukuthi wabe usuphendula maqondana naleyo ncwadi efungelwe ngento okubhalwe phansi?
Noma ngeke ngisakhumbula hlobo sekudala kunokwenza kuba ngaphendula.
Although I cannot remember because it was a long time ago, but it is possible that I did reply.
Now, just to identify the affidavit for you, Mr. Chair, we will be dealing with bundle LEA 10. The specific document, sir, is to be found at page 65 of that bundle.
Yes, I've got it. Mr. Interpreter.
Thank you, Chef. Mnumzane Mhlongo, kunomqingo wamaphepha lapho obhalwe LEA 10 kanti le ncwadi efungelwe ekhulunywa ngayo uzoyithola lapha ya ekhasini u65.
Yebo ngisayicinga khona ku 65. 11:45. Bengingathanda ukukhumbuza ukuhlala ukuthi amaphepha ami engawathunyelwa wona awahlelekanga kahle. Sizwayo mhlawumbe kungathatha isikhathi ukuthi
Well, Chair, my documents are not well organized. Perhaps it might take a bit of time for me to find it, and I ask you to bear with me.
Is Colonel Mhlongo's counsel or attorney in a different building or away, or are they close by?
Chair, we are in separate buildings.
You are in separate buildings.
Yes.
You know, I don't want us to be delayed because the witness doesn't have the same bundle as we have. Mr. Halley, do you know whether it's the only document that we will deal with that you'll be referring him to really, or there may be 2 or 3 others? I'm just trying to see whether it's warranted.
Absolutely.
I just want to see whether it's warranted to attend and somebody makes sure he has got exactly what we have, or whether we will be able to make do without getting him a bundle.
I have Tolika singayithola manje ilana ibhale Y11 TJ 212115 ngiyayikota ngiyibone affidavit ayikhwini Mhlongo.
Chair, I seem to find the affidavit here, but here it is written Y11TJ115. It's written I, Queen Ncamisile Mhlongo.
Okay, all right.
He's referring to page 115.
Mr. Halley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to see because the affidavit that I'm referring to does appear in different places, but now so it's possible that he's got a different, or he's got the same affidavit, but he's referring to it in a different place.
Yeah, I seem to think last time that was one of the problems as well, that he would find documents located in a different place from where I said this mine was located. So did you say, Mr. Abdi, this is the main affidavit you'd be dealing with, or what is the position?
This is one of the affidavits.
How many documents will you be?
I'm going to be referring to, I believe, about 4 documents. Perhaps I can identify them so that the witness can either flag it or take it out separately so that we're ready to deal with it as soon as I mention them.
Okay, okay, maybe let's do it this way. Yeah, mention the documents. Let's see if he can find them. Or what I'm going to do, let me adjourn, identify the documents, tell him the documents, let him have them ready at hand. So when I come back, we deal with each one. He doesn't have to look while I'm waiting here. Let him have them ready. That will be those that will be referred to, and then we can refer to paragraphs in those documents rather than the page numbers to make sure that there is no problem. But you can always just announce what the page numbers are, but we can just mainly use the paragraphs of the document because his documents are not the same as ours. So let me adjourn for what, 10 minutes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that will be more than sufficient.
Yeah, okay. I'll adjourn for 10 minutes to enable that to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colonel?
Yeah, bo.
Recording stopped.
Now, the first document I want you to look at is at page 6 of bundle LEA. That is your
We will now resume today's proceedings.
Can you hear me?
We can, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Has the problem been sorted out?
I believe it has, Mr. Chair. It seems that the file was simply rearranged for Colonel Mhlongo. So that's where the difficulty came in. But he has the same documents and he has the same numbering system as well. Perhaps with the exception of one document, but he does have the same numbering system as us.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Let's continue then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Colonel, sorry, I'd referred you to the affidavit of Ms. Mhlongo, and that affidavit appears at page 65 of bundle LE810. You've got it?
Yes.
Lapha kumnumzana Mhlongo kuzobukwa incwadi efungelwe kakhwenu Mhlongo etholakala ku-LE810 ekhasini 65. Ngabe usuyitholile?
Yebo sengitholile.
Yes, I've found it, Chair.
Thank you very much. And I indicated to you that you had had an opportunity to consider that affidavit and had in fact filed a response to the affidavit.
Yes.
Kade beke kwabekwa kuwe lapho ukuthi waba nethuba lokuyifunda le ncwadi efungelwe waseke ubhala impendulo yakho maqondana naleyo ncwadi efungelwe.
Yebo mnjalo.
That is correct, Chair.
And your response is in your affidavit dated 22nd of February of 2021, which appears at page 210.27.
Impendulo yakho ilapha kuleya ncwadi yakho efungelwe yamhla ka-22 kuFebruwari ka-2001 etholakala lapha ekhasini u-210.27.
Yebo mnjalo.
That is correct, Chair.
And if you would turn to the second last page of your affidavit, which is page 210.38, Mr. Chair.
So cala ke lapha uye ekhasini elandulela elokugcina lapha encwadini yakhe efungelwe ezokuba lapha ekhasini 210.28.
210.38.
210.38, Mnumzane Mhlongo.
Yes.
Yes.
You'll see from that, from the heading discussion with Ms. Queen Mhlongo Mhlongo, you'll see from paragraph 36 to 40, you deal with her affidavit.
Uzobonakala lapho kulelo khasi ukuthi ngaphansi kwesihlokwana sezingxoxo engabanazo noSizane uQueen Mhlongo ukuthi uma ubuka lapha ibinza u36 kuya ku40 khulunywa ke ngezinto eziqukethwe kwiaffidavit yakhe kumbe kwincwadi yakhe efungele.
Yebo.
Yes.
If I understand you correctly, and having read through your affidavit, if I understand what you're saying in your affidavit correctly, you are admitting the fact that you did have a discussion with Ms. Mhlongo, and you're also admitting the fact that while what she says is correct, if I understand you correctly, you're saying you disagree with the context in which she hasn't properly placed it in context. Do I understand that correctly?
Uma kubukwa kahle lokhu okushoyo kuzwakala engathi kuthe uyavuma ukuthi yebo wabanazo ingxoxo nonkosazane uMhlongo nokuthi lokho akushiloyo kuyiqiniso kodwa into angayibekanga kahle izimo ezazikhona maqondana nalokho okushoyo phecelezi icontext yalokho ayekusho.
Yebo.
Kunjani? That's correct, Chair.
Now, let's then go to Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit. So that once again is at page 65 of the same bundle.
Sihleke manje sibuyele lapha encwadini efungelwe yakhe unkosazana uMhlongo etholakala ekhasini u65.
Yebo.
Yes.
I would like to look at paragraph 2 of that affidavit.
So cala ke ubuke ibinza lesibili kuleyo ncwadi efungelwe.
Yebo ngibona.
I see it.
According to Ms. Mhlongo, she says that on Friday, the 15th of November of 2013, during the day, I went to the third floor in the Southern Life building to see Col Welcome Sithembiso Mhlongo as I usually do.
Kuleyo ncwadi ke efungelwe uthi unkosazana uMhlongo ngomhla ka15 kuNovember ka2013 ngekhathi zasemini ngaya esakhiweni sase Southern Sun uyabona umnumzane uMhlongo njengokujwayelekile.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I understand correctly, you confirm that that is in fact accurate.
Ngokuzwakala kwalenkulumo yakho ukuthi lenkulumo ayishoyo lapha unkosazane uMhlongo iyiqiniso.
Ngizosho noma ngekukhumbula because njengoba esho ukuthi wayenza njalo but ngeke ngakukhumbula lokhu ukuthi kwakuleli langa kwakulolu suku but wayenza yena njalo e-office because sase building elilodwa.
Chair, I can say that it is correct in the sense that she usually came to see me because we were in the same building, so she frequented my office. So even though I cannot say with certainty that on this particular day, on this particular time, she did come see me, but she did frequent my office.
She goes on to say that we sat and we started talking about the appointment of Mxolisi Nkosana as the new National Director of Public Prosecutions, and how happy I was as someone who is from Durban, who happens to be a close person to me. I thought he was going to share the same sentiments as he knows Mxolisi as well. Now, do you confirm that those two sentences are correct?
Uyaqhubeka-ke lapha athi sabe sesihlala phansi saqala saxoxa nokuyilapho-ke saxoxa ngendaba yokuqokwa kokamnumzane uMxolisi Ncasane njengomqondisi kuzwelonke babeshushisi. Kanti-ke nokuyilapho ngaveza khona ukwenama kwami ngokuqokwa kwakhe njengoba umuntu-ke engabe ngimazi futhi umuntu waseThekwini engangisondelene naye ngicabanga ukuthi uzokujabulela lokhu njengoba naye umuntu omaziyo umnumzane uNcasane. Ngaqinisekisa ukuthi leyo misho emibili iyiqiniso.
Ngingakuphika lokho kuhamba ngahlaza. Ukuthi khona into engayixoxa efana naleyo.
Chairperson, I dispute that as utter lies, that we did have a conversation to this effect. I dispute that.
We'll get to that in a moment. She goes on to say, however, he started, that's now a reference to you, started saying that he hopes that Mxolisi can let Richard Mdluli off the hook as he has been promised to head the intelligence unit in the KZN if Mdluli is not recharged. You have a discussion.
Iyaqhubeka-ke incwadi efungelwe ithi wabe esethi sekushiwo wena-ke lapha mnumzane uMhlongo wabe esethi-ke kimi ngiyethemba ukuthi uNcasana lo uzomdedela uMdluli beka uzomyeka uMdluli ngenxa yokuthi usethenjisiwe uMdluli ukuthi uyena ozoba inhloko yezomhlolo eKwaZulu Natal uma kuwukuthi akathweswa futhi amacala. Buzo-ke uthi ingabe nabanayo yini inkulumo ekanje noNkosazane uMhlongo?
Angikaze ngibe nayo and bengizocela ukuthi uhlalo weCommission akhumbule ukuthi uyazi uzathi wangithepha and mathi futhi akuveze lokho ngithepha kwakhe akukho. So ngiyakuphika ukuthi zikhona inkulumo efana lezo engake ngaba nazo. Bengicela ukuthi le affidavit ngenxa ukuthi amathepha awekho ngempela ingasetshenziswa ngoba ingamanga and ihamampungo yetulo lalakhela ukuthi ufakazeleke inkulumo esho uJubhe.
Chairperson, we did not have a conversation to this effect with Ms. Mhlongo. And I would also ask the chairperson to remember that she had indicated that she had recorded these conversations, but when asked to produce the recordings, same was not forthcoming. So this affidavit, I will ask that it not be used because it is full of lies. We did not have any conversation to this effect. These are utter lies, simply made up to support what was said by Mr. Jubbe.
Mr. Interpreter, 2 questions back, when Mr. Halley asked a question and referred to Mr. Mdluli, or referred to what Ms. Mhlongo said, Ms. Mhlongo said, Colonel Mhlongo said, you just said Mdluli without mentioning his name. The name reflected in paragraph 2 is Richard Mdluli, but probably Colonel Mhlongo knew that you were referring to Richard Mdluli. Do you want to just confirm with the witness that he understood that when you said Mdluli, you were referring to Richard Mdluli?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mnumzane uMhlongo, zokhumbula lapha ukuthi ngikathi kukhulunywa ngengxoxo owabanayo noNkosazana uMhlongo siye sabalula lapha ukuthi leyo nkulumo iyayimaqondana nomdluli ukuthi uma umdluli engabekwa futhi amacala uyobe senikezwa esokuba inhloko yezinhloli KwaZulu-Natal. Ngekathi kuphendula lowo mbuzo ingabe ubuqonda ngisebenzise isibongo sakhe kuphela igama lakhe lokuqala ngangalibiza uRichard Mdluli. Ingabe-ke ube nakuqonda ukuthi lapho kukhulunywa ngomnumzane uRichard Mdluli ngekathi sisebenzisa isibongo sithi Mdluli?
Yebo, ngiyaqonda. Yebo, bengiqonda ukuthi.
Yes, Chair, I understood.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Halley?
She goes on to say, he also, referring once again to you, he also mentioned that the right candidate was Nomqobo Jiba.
Uyaqhubeka-ke lapha athi wabe esethi usho wena njani ukuthi okuyena muntu obefanelekile bekunguNomcebo Jiba.
Nomqobo Jiba, not Nomcebo.
Thank you. Okusempeleni-ke uNomgcobo Jiba. Thank you, Chair.
Ngisaphinda futhi sihlalo ngisho ukuthi angazani naleyo nkulumo, angikaze ngicule into nje engimazela yona lo mntwana owakamhlongo. Isho sezonke eqala uzofika la futhi nabazali bakhe sikhonza nabo. Wayengeke nje angeke ngize ngikwazi ukuthi ngikhulume naye eleveleni yakhe izinto mhlawumbe ngabe zisensitive kangako ngoba inkulumo engayazani engikubuka nje lapho kuhlala ikona ukuthi kwakuqhubeka kwenza kufakazeliwa amanga kaJubhe.
Once again, Chair, that is a lie. I only know this young lady as a Mhlongo. When she came here, I got to know her, that she is also a Mhlongo, and her parents and I go to the same place of worship, and I would have never discussed with her, given her level, matters of this sensitivity. What I think is happening here is that this whole thing has once again been made up so that it would confirm the lies that were told by Mr. Jubhe.
Then in paragraph 3, she says the following. He, once again referring to you, started telling me that Mxolisi Nkosana was not a kind man, as I thought, and that he knew this from interviewing his relatives. At the time, I didn't understand what was going on. He continued by telling me, or by telling that he knows Mxolisi Nkosana from a long time ago, when they had an altercation about a client of Nkosana, whom he, in brackets Mhlongo, had arrested. Did you have a discussion about that?
Phinda aqhubeke ebinzeni lesithathu aveze ukuthi wabe seqhubeka ethi kusaqhusho kanjani ukuthi kusho wena. Waqhubeka wathi ke uyamazi umxolisi ukuthi akasiyo indoda elungile njengalokhu ngicabanga. Wabe sethi lokhu kuthole ngenkulumo abenazo ngibingxoxo abenazo namalunga omndeni wakhe. Waphinde waveza futhi ukuthi uyamazi uMxolisi Nxasane kusukela kudala, kanti ke uyamazi nangengxabano abake baba nayo maqondana nekhasimende lakhe, kumbe ke ayemele othize abe ekade embophile, ukuthi ke lowo thize wabeboshwe nguwe mnumzane uMhlongo emelwe ngumnumzane uNxasane. Mbuzo ke uthi ingabe inkulumo kanjalo yaba khona yini?
Ngiyayiphika inkulumo efana naleyo, angaze ngibe nayo inkulumo futhi angase ngibophe iclient likamnumzane uNxasane.
Chairperson, I dispute that. We never had such a conversation. It is a lie, and at no stage did I ever arrest Mr. Nxasane's client.
Before you continue, Mr. Halley, Mr. Interpreter, I'm going to suggest that where Ms. Mhlongo is talking about what Colonel Mhlongo said, you use direct language to Colonel Mhlongo and say, Ms. Mhlongo says this, you said this, you said that, you said that, so that it's clear that you are saying Ms. Mhlongo is saying things that she is attributing to Colonel Mhlongo. Because when you use a third person the way you have done, it might cause confusion as to who Ms. Mhlongo, whether you are talking about Ms. Mhlongo having said those things or Colonel Mhlongo. Is that fine with you?
No, that's fine, Chair. That's fine.
Yes, yeah. Usho nje uthi uMs Mhlongo, Colonel Mhlongo uthi wena wathi again. Uthi wathi again. Uthi wathi bese ubuza wakusho inlogo. So kuzokwenza ukuthi ku understandeke kahle. Okay, all right.
I acknowledge.
Okay, all right. Please continue, Mr. Halley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. She then goes on to say that he, referring to yourself, then continued to tell me that Nkosana has many properties around Durban, and he mentioned Ntuzuma, Umlazi, Pinetown, and Kloof, amongst others. So what she's saying is that you informed her that Nkosana had many properties around Durban, and the properties that you mentioned were in Ntuzuma, in Umlazi, in Pinetown, and Kloof.
Pinda veze lapha ukuthi wena waphinde wamtshela ukuthi unezindlu ubeke imizi eminingi umnumzane uNxasane wabusumtshela futhi ukuthi umunye yaleyo mizi umunye ukhona osemlazi khona osentuzuma kube khona osePinetown kube khona oseKloof.
Ngiyaphiya futhi kangaze ngikhulume la ngemizi kaNxasane ngoba angiyazi imizi kaNxasane.
I dispute that, Chair. At no stage did I speak to her about Mr. Nxasane's properties because I do not know where Mr. Nxasane's properties are situated.
Now, if we can turn then to your affidavit, which once again, Mr. Chair, for your benefit is at page 210.27.
Yes, are
So,
you I'm sorry. Are you going to come back to this affidavit, Mr. Halley, or you are done with it?
I've done with it. I might refer back to it depending on how he responds to some of the questions. But for present purposes, I'm done with it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Continue.
So I'd like you to look at page 210.38, sir. That is from paragraph 36.
Sicela ke lapha encwadini yakhe efungelwe ubheke lapha ekhasini u210.38 bheke lapha ibinza 36.
Did you say 36, paragraph 36, Mr. Halley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's correct.
Okay.
Have you
got it, Colonel Mhlongo?
Yes, I've got it in my last affidavit. Yes.
Mr. Interpreter, he has confirmed that he has got
Yes,
the
Chair.
affidavit. Yeah.
In your affidavit, sir, you say the following. Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit takes the substance of our discussions out of context. We were colleagues talking about the appointment of our new head, the National Director of Public Prosecutions. Paragraph 37 So maybe you should translate that. I'm not sure if it requires a translation, but perhaps you should translate it.
Mr. Interpreter?
Lapha ke uma kubukwa lapha kwibinza u36 liveza ukuthi inkulumo kaSazane uMhlongo ibeka inkulumo yethu ngokungeyikho ngaphansi kwezimo esasikhuluma ngazo phecelezi icontrol sisixoxa njengabantu abasebenza ndawonye ngokuqokwa kwenhloko entsha yophiko lwabashushisi.
Mr. Halley?
Go on to paragraph 37 to say, I mentioned to Mr. Mhlongo, as I had mentioned to Mr. Jube, that Mr. Nkosana had treated me badly in one case involving one of his clients as an attorney, and that I did not like him from that incident. That's what you say there.
Kwibinza u37 qhubeka ngokuthi ngabe ke sengixoxela uNkosazana uMhlongo njengalokhu ngangixoxele umnomzana uJube ukuthi umnomzana uNxasane ngiyamazi futhi ke kwangena umuntu engangimkhonzile ngenxa yesigameko esaba khona lapha engangiphathanga kahle khona ecaleni elithize elabe limaqondana nomuntu owayemelwe nguye umnomzane uNxasane nokuthi ke angizange ngimthandisise kusukela kuleso sigameko.
Yes.
Sir?
Yes.
Do you understand, Colonel Mhlongo, that what Mr. Halley is referring to is what you said in your affidavit, responding to Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit. Do you understand that?
Ingabe uyaqonda Colonel Mhlongo ukuthi lencwadi njengamanje efundwa ngummeli uMnumzana uHandle incwadi yakho efundelwe owayibhala uphendula lokho kwakushiwo uNkosazana uMhlongo kwi-affidavit lakhe.
Yebo kodwa ngizocela ukuchaza la ukuthi kwakungeve kodwa kungebe kuwukuthi ngithi mina uMr Nxasana akaxoshwe. Sasikhuluma nje njengomuntu wakaMhlongo sikhuluma uthi hayi yena kodwa uhash yena but sincoma kodwa kube kuhle kwangena yena la esikhundleni but sisincoma ukuthi hayi into edafanele ayehlise ithempa yaba khona into efana nalena lapha engiyisebenzela khona wafika wangenelele emsebenzini ngingayi engekho emsebenzini ukuthi angabophi umuntu.
I do understand that, Chair, but if I may perhaps explain here that this is a conversation I was having with Ms. Mhlongo as another person who is also of Mhlongo surname. We were discussing and I mentioned that, but he's quite harsh. And we're all otherwise excited that he had been appointed. But I did say perhaps it would be best that he keeps a close check on his temper. And I did mention that there was an incident when he interfered with my work when I was supposed to arrest a person, where he indicated that I should not effect an arrest. But we were speaking in rather casual terms as people of Mhlongo surname, both sharing the same surname.
Mr. Halley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, you go on to say in paragraph 38, the comment regarding his properties arose, as I said, in brackets, you've got people that are generally well off have a tendency of disrespecting others. I mentioned his properties in that context.
Kanti lapha maqhutshekwa kuthiwa ke indaba uveza ukuthi ke indaba yokuthi ngibalule imizi yakhe yaqhamuka ngenkathi sikhuluma ngendaba ukuthi labantu abamkahle asohlangothini ke lezomnotho bawujabula ukuthi babadelele abanye abantu. Iyona ndlela ke leyo okwaqhamuka ngayo udaba lemizi kaMnumzana Nxasana.
Yebo kunjalo. Yebo kunjalo. but nakhona lapho hayi ngoba kangithi ungisenxasana kasusu esikhundleni noma akafanele ukuthi abe lesikhundla ayisona. It was just a general talk because wonke umuntu uyamazi futhi ke mina naye we sharing ukuthi umsenxasana uzalo uMamhlongo nami ngumhlongo nalo umhlongo sasi happy ukuthi ungenile esikhundleni umntaka Mamhlongo.
That is correct, Chair. But once again, I was not saying that Mr. Mhlongo should be fired or he should not be appointed.
Mr. Nxasana.
Mr. Nxasane
Yeah.
had to be removed. This was just something we were speaking about in generally casual terms. And we're also happy because this is a person that we all knew. And another thing that we were talking about is the fact that Mr. Nxasane's mother, her maiden surname is Mhlongo. I'm also in Mhlongo, and Ms. Mhlongo is also in Mhlongo, so we're generally happy for him.
Paragraph 39, you say, I also came to know of his properties as I knew him from an early age and because we share family relations.
Binza u39 lithi ngazi ngemizi yakhe ngoba ke umuntu esekunesikhathi ngimazi ngoba ke ngimazela isikhathini ke sakudala ngisho ke sisabuncane nangokweminyaka kanti futhi sinobudlelwane bemindeni khona ke lokho kwadala ukuthi ngazi ngemizi yakhe. Ingabe leyo nkulumo iyiqiniso?
Yebo iyiqiniso ekutheni we're all happy ukuthi umuntu oright umuntu esimaziyo ukuthi nje odumile kuba uyarentisa nangama property.
It is correct in the sense that we're all saying he was the right person and he was a person that we knew, a person who's well known, who also rents out properties.
When I questioned you earlier on and I took you to Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit, you said that you never had a discussion of about the properties because you knew nothing about the properties.
Ngekathi ubuzwa ngaphambilini uthe awukazi ukukhuluma lutho ngonkosazana uMhlongo ngezindlu zika mnumzane uNxasana ngoba awazi lutho ngaso.
Yebo ngizobuyela ekuthaneni ukubeka ukuthi zikuphi nakuphi nakuphi. Yebo angikho sure lapho thina ngeke ngize ngisho ukuthi kodwa nje konke kwakukhulunywa lapho kwakukhulunywa in essence ukuthi sasijabulela ukhazini wethu obekwe esikhundleni.
Yes, Chair. I cannot be able to say where those properties are situated. But when we had this conversation, we were speaking, being happy that our cousin had been appointed to that position.
When I asked you earlier on about Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit, you said that what she was saying in her affidavit was all lies designed to support what Mr. Jubei was saying.
Yebo
Eqaleni uthe lokho okuqukethwe kule ncwadi efungelwe kwaNkosazana uMhlongo kungamanga akhelwe nje ukuthi kuqinisekiswe lawa manga ayekade eshiwo ngumnumzane uJubei.
Yebo ngizokuvuma ukuthi ukufaka kwayo ifakazelele uJubei. Yayisifaka ukuthi yakhe amanga ngoba ukukhuluma kwami naye uQueen kwangeva ukukhuluma okukubi ngobaba uNxasana. Kwakukhuluma okuhle but uma isifakwa la isifakwa as if mina sekufakwa no Richard Mdluli ufana into engazange ngixoxe nabo nongekho ongakutholi la kulokho ngiphika ukuthi yayingena kodwa kabi yayingeva ikhuluma into correct ya siyaxoxa ngayo kodwa ukukhuluma kwakhe ukukhuluma kwayo isifakwa la isifakwa ngendlela embi.
Chair, what I am indicating is that in as much as we did have a conversation with Ms. Mhlongo, what I indicate is a lie is when it is now being used or presented in such a way that it supports the lies that are being told by Mr. Joubert. We did have conversations and they were pleasant in nature and we were all happy. But now when they come here or when they're brought here, they now begin to include Mr. Richard Mdluli, which is not correct. When we spoke about Mr. Nxasane, we were all speaking in happy terms that he had been appointed.
Waze naye wakhuluma ukuthi ayi uyathanda ukuthi sisondele ekuthaneni esisebenzisane noNxasane njoba esekhithiwe. Kusho yena uPhini kimi. And awuchaze lokho.
She further, even herself, spoke and indicated that she was happy that Mr. Nxasane had been appointed and that she wishes that we could just come close and be able to assist Mr. Nxasane as he had been recently appointed.
Nakho ukuthi okungixakayo futhi ukuthi kukhulunywe indaba zokuthi wayengirecorda kodwa futhi kokurecorda akusatholakali futhi. And ikona okungenza ukuthi mina ukusetshenziswa kwale affidavit isetshenziswa wrongly because we were all happy umntaka Mhlongo siwo Mhlongo engena esikhundleni sasikujabulela lokho and sasingamsupporting and I had no reason ukuthi khona singagcisi do ke ukhona ukuthi asimazi ukuthi umuntu ohashi.
Another thing, Chair, is the fact that it had been indicated, or she had indicated, that our conversation was being recorded, but when those recordings are needed, they seem not to be forthcoming, which is why I say this affidavit now was being used to support the untruths that were being told by Mr. Joubert. And we were speaking, but we were speaking in happy terms, as I'd indicated that Mr. Nxasane's mother being Mhlongo as per her maiden surname, and we're all happy about that. But now when it's presented here, it is being presented incorrectly.
Now, in this affidavit, the present affidavit, your affidavit, you say two things about Mr. Nxasane. You say, firstly, if you look at paragraph 37, that he had treated you badly in a case involving one of his clients where he was acting as an attorney on behalf of a client. And you say further that because of that, I did not like him.
Zimbili izinto ozishoyo lapha ngomnumzane uNxasane encwadini yakhe efungelwe ebinzeni u37 uveza ukuthi umnumzane uNxasane uye wamaze njengomuntu ke owabe ongazange akuphathe kahle exaleni thizeni elabe lebandakanya loyo ayekade emmele nekathi ke esebenza njengommeli. Phinde ke uveza ukuthi ngenxa yaleso sigameko lapho umnumzane uNxasane engakuphathanga kahle awuzange umthandisise kahle.
Yebo, ngiyakuzwa lokho kodwa ngicabanga ukuthi indlela kaNqondo ukukhuluma ngayo lena ethi sasike sathusana nje naye and angizange ngikuthandisise ukwenza kwakhe, not yena as a person. Ngiyacabanga ukuthi kwaba khona i-misprint ukulokunjana statement.
Chairperson, I believe,
and we were happy. We're talking that not in terms of kwase khona ukudina noma ukhona ukuthi mhlawumbe uNxasane akafuneka angene, and it was not even for us ukuthi sithi singakhetha ukuthi uNxasane angene esikhundleni noma angangeni.
Chairperson, concerning that, I think when the statement was made, the essence of what I was trying to say was not properly captured. What I had indicated or sought to indicate was the fact that there was an incident where Mr. Nxasane and I did not see eye to eye concerning the client of his, but that I did not like that particular incident, not that I disliked him as a person. I had disliked or was unpleased by that particular incident. But overall, when we had these conversations, I was quite happy that Mr. Nxasane had been appointed, even though I did mention that incident that I say I was unhappy with. It was not to say he should not be appointed or that he should be removed from the position, because even then, I do not think we had any say in whether he gets appointed or not.
Second issue that you mentioned in this affidavit is you say in paragraph 39, I came to know of his properties as I knew him from an early age and also because we share family relations. So on your version that you've given in this affidavit, you knew of the properties.
Mawubuka lapha ebinzeni u39 kuvela ke ukuthi ngangazi ngemizi yakhe kumbe ke impahla yakhe ngenxa yokuthi wayeumuntu engimaziyo kusukela esikhathini sakudala kanti futhi kunobudlelwane bemindeni. Uma kubukwa lenkulumo yakho lapha idweba isithombe sokuthi wena ubunalo ulwazi ngemizi kaMnumzane Nxasane.
Ngingasho ukuthi lapho ukwazi ngemizi kaNxasane it can be a well public thing uma ukuthi uyarentisa ngemizi yakhe. Nako engazi ukuthi mhlawumbe ngabe kona ukuthinta kungenaphi ekuthaneni angeke ngingaze ngithi akakhishwe ngoba unemizi. Kuba nemizi akumezi umuntu akhishwe enkundleni. Baningi abantu esibazi aba-government abanayo imizi but akusho ukuthi lokho esasikhuluma la noQueen sikhuluma ebuhleni bokuthi umuntu o-right, umuntu onama-property but not mention ukuthi kuphi nokuphi futhi ngizwa okunye ngangikuzwa nangaye uQueen.
On that particular point, Chair, the issue of his properties, it can be a well-known or a piece of information that is in the public domain if his properties are registered. And when he rents out, when he's renting out his properties, I beg your pardon, that is information that will be well known, even though I may not have information as to know exactly where those properties are situated. Another point is there is no reason why, if he has properties, that I would have then said he should not be appointed. There are many people who work for the government who have properties, and that is not an issue. And some of these things I would hear from Ms. Mhlongo herself, Queen.
Well, Colonel Mhlongo, let's not confuse things. Did your conversation with Ms. Mhlongo on that day involve talking about Mr. Nxasane's properties or not?
Lapha Mnumzane Mhlongo kwenzela ukuthi ngeze kuba khona ukudideka. Ingxoxo owabanayo nonkosazane uMhlongo ngalolu suku yabandakanya yini imizi mbeke izindlu zika Mnumzane Nxasane?
Yebo yaxoxa ukuthi unemizi.
Yes, Chair, we did speak about the fact that he had properties.
Did you tell Ms. Mhlongo that you knew that Mr. Nxasane had a number of properties?
Ingabe wamtshela yini unkosazane uMhlongo ukuthi wena wawunolwazi lokuthi uMnumzane Nxasane unemizi eminingi?
Yes, also confirming on what she was telling me.
Ngicela ungiphindele ngisezwa.
Yebo ngakusho kodwa futhi nakhona ngangiqiniseka ezinye zezinto ayezisho nayo.
Yes, Chair, I did mention that, but I was also confirming some of the things that she had said.
I thought you said earlier on when Mr. Hali took you through parts of Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit that you knew nothing about Mr. Nxasana having a number of properties. Did I hear you incorrectly?
Lapha ingabe sihlalo bekuzwe kahle yini ngaphambilini ngenkathi ubuzwa ngumnomzane uHali ukuthi kona bowuthe wawungazi lutho ngokuthi umnomzane uNxasana wabe enezindlu eziningi, ngabe ke uzwakale kahle?
Yebo ngikushilo ukuthi kodwa ukuze kukhulumeke ngako ngoba kwakuvela kuyena ubaba uQueen and lana ngithi sikhuluma ngoQueen ukuthi utheni. So that is why mina ngikubeke kanjalo ukuthi well nako ukuthi sixoxe kanti beniqonda ukuthi sixoxe ingoba uyena wayemention it.
Yes, Chair, you heard me correctly. What happened is the fact that it was Queen who made mention of the properties. So we got to speak about it because she's the one that had mentioned it.
So why did you, at that stage, when Mr. Hali was asking you questions on Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit, why did you say you knew nothing about Mr. Nxasana's properties, if in fact, as you now confirm, you knew about Mr. Nxasana's properties?
Kungani ngenkathi umnumzane uHali ekubuza
Recording stopped.
kwaQueen Mhlongo uveze ukuthi wena
Recording in
wawungazi
progress.
lutho ngezindlu kumbe imizi kaMnumzane uNxasana, uma kuwukuthi njengoba usukuveza njengamanje wena kukhona obukwazi kumbe wawazi ngemizi yakhe uMnumzane uNxasana?
It might have ukuthi mhlawumbe ngesikhathi ngiqale kushuthi ngiqale nami ngayikhuluma ngongayinakisisi kahle kodwa ngiyayihoxisa ukuthi ngithe angazi ngokuthi uNxasana wayenemizi. uNxasana ngiyakwazi ngoba saxoxa naye ukuthi unana nemizi, sixoxa ukuthi umuntu omi right omi kahle. Then ngiyahoxisa ukuthi ngabe ngikulokhu mhlawumbe ngisho ngobudedeni kanganani.
Chairperson, I must have spoken somewhat carelessly or negligently when I had indicated that I do not know, or I did not know that Mr. Nxasana had properties. I do know about that, and we did speak about that when Ms. Mhlongo and I were having a conversation that indeed Mr. Nxasana does have properties.
And then at a later stage, I understood you to be saying you knew that Mr. Nxasana did have properties, but you did not know where they were located. Did I understand you correctly?
Phinde wezwakala lapha uveza ukuthi nalo ulwazi yebo lokuthi umnumzane uNxasana unazo izindlu, kepha ongakwazi ukuthi zikuphi nendawo ukuthi ikuphi lena le ikuphi. Ngabe uzwakale kahle mawusho kanjalo khona nelumhlongo?
Well uthi angisakhumbuli kahle lapho.
I can't remember. I can't remember clearly.
Okay, let me ask this question. At the time that you had that discussion with Ms. Mhlongo, did you know where Mr. Nxasana's properties were? Because she says in her affidavit, you told her where they were located. And she mentioned Ntozuma and I think Umlazi. I don't know which other places. Did you know at that time that Mr. Ngasana's properties were in those places, or did you not know?
Mhlawumbe kubekwe kanje lo mbuzo khona Mhlongo ngenkathi uba nenkulumo nonkosazane uQueen Mhlongo, ingabe wawazi yini ukuthi imizi kumbe izindlu zikaMnumzane uNxasana zikuphi nendawo? Ngoba ngokwencwadi efungelwe yakhe unkosazane uMhlongo uveza ukuthi wakhuluma naye wamtshela ngezindlu zikaMnumzane uNxasana wasubalula ukuthi zikuphi, baluke indawo ezifana noMlazi, oNtuzuma, oPinetown neKloof ukuthi imizi yakhe ilapho kulezo indawo. Umbuzo ukuthi wawazi yini ngenkathi ukhuluma naye ukuthi imizi kaMnumzane uNxasana ikuphi nendawo?
Ngangazi ukuthi imizi kaNxasana ikuphi, kodwa-ke ngazi ukuthi uMnumzane uNxasana unayo imizi engikwaziyo ngoMlazi ukuthi kubo ka-eMlazi.
Kusephi isiceme
Ka-eMlazi engikwazi ukuthi kubo lapho.
I did not know, Chairperson, where the properties are located. I knew that he had properties, but I did not know where they were located. But I did know that his home is situated at Umlazi, E section.
Colonel Mhlongo, you are a police officer. You are giving evidence in this commission under oath. I just want you to reflect on your evidence. Remember that you are under oath. You are a police officer. I'm going to ask you this question again. At the time that you had that discussion with Ms. Mhlongo, did you know or did you not know where Mr. Nxasana's properties were?
Yes,
Khona Mhlongo lapha uyiphoyisa kanti futhi uthula ubufakazi kule komishana ngaphansi kwesifungo. Sihlalo uzocela lapho ukuthi ubukisise kahle, ucabangisise kahle ubufakazi bakho, phinde ke awubuze lo mbuzo kuwe ukuthi ngenkathi uba nenkulumo kumbe ingxoxo owabanayo nonkosazane uQueen Mhlongo, ingabe wawazi yini ukuthi izindlu zikaMnumzane uNxasana zikuphi nendawo?
yebo, njengoba ngisho ukuthi ngangathi ikhaya lakhe liseNtuzuma lisemlazi ka-E and umuzi wakhe useKloof. Ngangikwazi lo.
As I'd indicated, Chair, what I did know is that his home, rather where he grew up or where his family is, was at Mlazi, E section, and that he had now gotten a house of his own that is at Kloof.
Okay. Did you know whether he had a property in Tuzuma or not?
Ingabe wawunalo yini ulwazi ukuthi ukhona yini umuzi ayinawo eNtuzuma noma cha?
Ngangingazi lokho ngakuthola ngoQueen.
I did not know, Chair. I only got that from Queen.
You see, Colonel Mhlongo, when you responded to Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit by way of your own affidavit that we are dealing with now, you never said in that affidavit, as I see it, maybe except paragraph 40, you never said that what Ms. Mhlongo was saying in her affidavit was not true. All you said was she had taken the substance of your discussion with her out of context. Do you agree that that is what you said in your affidavit when you were responding to Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit, namely that except for paragraph 40, and we'll talk about it just now, except for paragraph 40, there's nowhere where you said what she was saying was not true. All you said was she had taken the substance of your discussion with her out of context.
Uma kubukwa incwadi yakho efungelwe khona Mhlongo uyibuka nje ngokuphelele le kuyiyona esiphezukwayo njengamanje ngaphandle kwaleli yabinza u40 uma ulubuka okuyiyona ncwadi ophendula ngayo lokhu okubhalwe kwincwadi efungelwe kaNkosazane uMhlongo akukho la othi khona okuqukethwe kwincwadi efungelwe kaNkosazane uMhlongo kungamanga okushoyo kuphela ukuthi lezi zinto enaniyikhuluma yena usethathe wayibeka ngaphansi kwesimo esehlukile phecelezi i-context okungesiyo. Ungakuqinisekisa lokho?
Yebo, ngiyaqinisekisa.
I confirm that, Chair.
But you did say earlier on when Mr. Hali was asking you questions on Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit that Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit was full of lies and it should not be used at all because it was made in order to corroborate Mr. Yobe's version. Do you accept that that is what you said?
Yes.
Kepha-ke ngenkathi umnumzane uHani ekubuza imibuzo uye waveza ukuthi lokhu okuqukethwe encwadini efungelwe kaNkosazane uMhlongo kungamanga kanti-ke nanokuthi le ncwadi efungelwe akufanele ukuthi isetshenziswe sanhlobo ngenxa yokuthi iqukethe amanga asetshenziswa nje ukuqinisekisa noma ukweseka le ncazelo ebeyibekwa umnumzane uJube engamanga. Ngaqinisekisa ukuthi lokho kushilo ngaphambilini ubuzwa imibuzo ngomnumzane uHani?
Yebo kunjalo.
That is correct, Chair. That is what I said.
So it seems to me that there are two things you are saying about Ms. Mhlongo's affidavit, generally speaking. One, in your affidavit, you are not saying that what she was saying in her affidavit about your discussion with her was a lie, but you are saying it was taken out of context. But when you were asked by Mr. Handi earlier on, you said it was all lies. These are two different things. What is the true position? And I want to remind you that you are under oath and you are a police officer. Is the position that what she has said is all lies and her affidavit should not be used? Or is the position that no, what she has said is not all lies. She just took the substance of your discussion out of context. What is the true position?
Lapha-ke okubonakala kubonakala ukuthi kunezinto ezimbili lapha khona Mhlongo. Kubonakala ukuthi kunenkulumo la eveza ukuthi okuqukethwe kwincwadi efungelwe kaNkosazane uMhlongo akusikho ukuthi ingoba kungamanga, kepha-ke kuyikona nje ukuthi indlela abeke ngayo umongo wenkulumo nabanayo sekuyindlela engeyiyo phecelezi-ke i-context eyehlukile. Ikhona lokho kokuqala. Okwesibili ilokhu okutholakale ngenkathi uphendula imibuzo ebivela ngakummeli umnumzane uHandi nokuyilapho uthe le ncwadi efungelwe iqukethe amanga kudingakala-ke ukuthi ingabukwa sakubukwa ngenxa yokuthi inamanga. Sethi-ke lapha usihlalo socela-ke ukuthi ucacise ukuthi ikona kuphi ngempela okushoyo noma ikukho ukuthi-ke ngaphambi kokuthi uphendule lowo mbuzo ukhumbule ukuthi umuntu womthetho kumbe uyiphoyisa kanti futhi ungaphansi kwesifungo. Uyacela-ke ucacise lapha ukuthi ngabe ingoba ingamanga incwadi efungelwe noma ayisiwo amanga ikona nje ukuthi ibekeke ngendlela ephundukezela i-context.
ngingasho ukuthi indlela ebekwe ngayo ibekwe ngendlela ephendukezela neyenza isimo sibe sengathi sasisibi phakathi kwami nobaba uNxasane. But ukuxoxa, yes, sixoxa njengoba esho nayo uQueen wayefika every day in my office ezophuza ikhofi. Sixoxa ngoba ama-office ethu ayakhelela nokuthi wayesuka kwenye indawo kwakuyi-same building ukuthi kuhlaphe kuhlwele ngama-floor. Engikushoyo ukuthi yebo inkulumo yethu yaba khona, kodwa indlela esithathe ayobekeka ngayo ukwenza le affidavit kuya ku-commission, ngibona ukuthi yayibe isimotivatela ukuthi ifakazelane no Terence Jubber.
Chairperson, what I'm saying is we did have a conversation with Ms. Mhlongo. However, when an affidavit was made, it was now presented in an incorrect manner, or rather in an improper context. As she had indicated, we used to see each other. She would come to my office quite often because we were working in the same building, perhaps different floors, but she would frequent my office, arrive there and have some coffee, and we would have conversations. We did speak about this, but now it has been presented in such a way that it corroborates the version of Terence Jubber.
Mr. Halley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, I'd like us to, and if I could just, make one further point. My understanding is that you knew Mr. Nkosana from a very young age.
Mhlambe kule sidlule nje kuleli phuzu kodwa beka isithombe lapha sokuthi umnumzana uNxasane ubumazi kusukela ke ebuncaneni.
Yebo, ngiyamazi because umuntu nje ofunda ongoye sonke siyamazi. Yebo uyazeka umuntu umfana okhulele la eThekwini.
I know him, Chair. Everybody knows him. He's as a boy who went to study at Ungoye. So everybody know him as a person who grew up in Durban.
Now, you'll recall that you were dragged into this matter because you had been implicated by General Boyson. Do you recall that?
Uzokhumbula ukuthi uze nje ungena kulolu daba ingenxa yokuthi igama lakho liye lathinteka ngokubufakazi buka General uBoyson. Ngabe uyakhumbula lokho?
Yebo ngiyakhumbula.
Yes, I recall that.
And you'll recall that if you, General Boyson had provided an affidavit of Mr. Jubber to the commission. And that affidavit appears at page 69 of the bundle.
Uzokhumbula ke ukuthi General uBoyson uyewaletha phambi kwekhomishana incwadi efungelwe evela laphayana kumnumzane uJubber evela laphaya ekhasini 69.
Yebo.
Yes.
And you disputed that affidavit, the affidavit of Terence Jubber.
Wakhombisa ke ukuyiphikisa incwadi efungelwe kamnumzane uTerence Jubber.
Awuphinde umbuzo.
If you may repeat the question.
You disputed this affidavit of Mr. Terence Jubber. Maybe you should look at the actual affidavit. It's at page 69.
Maybe you can tell him whether it's the first one or the second one, Mr. Halley.
First one, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's the first one. It's the affidavit which is dated 25 November 2013.
Yes, maybe let me, Colonel Mhlongo, let me just explain. You'll remember that Mr. Jubber deposed to two affidavits. The first one was implicating you in wrongdoing. The second one, he was saying he had nothing to do with the first affidavit. The one that Mr. Hali is talking about is the first one where Mr. Yobe was implicating you in wrongdoing. You understand that?
So I understand that.
Okay. Mr. Hali is now saying, do you remember that you disputed what Mr. Yobe said in his first affidavit?
Yes.
Lapha ke umuntu usuthi ke ngabe ke uyakhumbula ukuthi wena waphikisana nalokho kwabe kushiwo ngumnumzane uJubert incwadi yakhe efungelwe yokuqala.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Hali?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And when you disputed it, the basis on which you disputed it is because you said that Mr. Joubert had withdrawn that affidavit. So it wasn't a genuine affidavit. It was not his affidavit. Do you recall that?
Kanti ke okuyisona sizathu ophikisana ngaso nalokho okuqukethwe kuleyo affidavit kumbe naleyo affidavit kwaba ukuthi engenxa ukuthi umnumzane uJubert uqobo lwakhe wayihoxisa okwabe kuqukethwe kuleyo affidavit eveza ukuthi akusiyi affidavit yakhe yangempela. Ngabe yakhumbula lokho?
Yebo ngiyakhumbula.
If I can just correct one thing. Sorry, I said withdrawn. You didn't withdraw it. You disputed on the basis that he had, that's Mr. Joubert, had challenged the authenticity or the genuineness of the first affidavit. He said it was not his affidavit.
Mhlambe ke ukulungisa nje kulokho ukuthi hayi ukuthi wayihoxisa umnumzane uJubert kodwa ke waphikisana nayo ngaphansi kwesizathu sokuthi umnumzane uJubert wayekuphosele inselelo ubuqiniso baleyo affidavit yokuqala eveza ukuthi kwangeyona incwadi yakhe efungelwe yangempela.
Yebo ngiyakhumbula lokho.
Yes, I do recall that, Chair.
Now, you filed an affidavit with the Commission. If you would turn with me to page 6, that's your first affidavit before the Commission, and it's an affidavit which is dated the 9th of May of 2019.
So what page is that, Mr. Ali?
Pardon me, Mr. Chair, it's page 6.
Okay, continue.
Lapha mawubheka ekhasini u6 uzothola ukuthi ke kunencwadi yakho efungelwe wayiletha lapha kwi-commission yasayinwa ngomhla ka9 kuMeyi ka2019.
Yebo ngiyayibona lo affidavit eCommission yomhla ka9 May 2019.
I do see that affidavit, Chair, commissioned on the 9th of May 2019.
Turn to page 16 of that document.
So qala ke uye ekhasini u16 laleyo ncwadi efungelwe.
Guess, Mr. Hali, you mean paginated 16, not 16 of the affidavit.
Pardon me, paginated 16 of the bundle, in other words. Page, not F16 of the affidavit. Pardon me, Mr. Chair.
So qala ke lapha uye ekhasini u16 lalowo mqingo wamaphepha ophambi kwakho uye ekhasini u16.
Did we not cover this, Mr. Hali? I thought we covered this. Or is there something that you want
I don't
to
recall that, pardon me, Mr. Chair, I don't recall that we did cover this specific affidavit. We recovered the affidavit that I've just dealt with before. But this one, you didn't confirm, or I don't recall that you confirmed it on the record, and I couldn't find it when I read through the transcript.
Oh, is that so? Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead.
I want to be on the safe side. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you see this document, sir, at page 16?
Page 16, yes, I'm on page 16 as we speak.
And you'll see there that there's, right at the top, it refers to deponent. Do you see that? And there's a signature.
There are 16 of which introduction.
On page 16, I see written introduction.
No, you are in the wrong place. let's go to where your affidavit starts. It starts at page 6. It says 006. Are you able to find that?
Ake siyale la liqala khona u006 laqala khona affidavit yakho. Ngithi
Okay. Uyabona manje.
I think I can see now.
Have you found it?
Ngabe usumtholile khona Mhlongo?
One, two.
Just a few pages after the beginning of the file.
Ngasekuqaleni nje kwalowo mqingo wamaphepha phambi kwakho. Ekhasini 006.
The document, the first affidavit that I said you must set aside.
Oh, the last one. Is it the last one? Not the last.
Not the last one, the first one. The very first one.
Elokuqala nje bekuthiwa ulimake lapha ngokulifolder esend.
Affidavit.
It's,
All that it's got AA1, and it's got an actual AA1 that is written in manuscript, and you referred to that earlier on during the adjournment.
Khona lapho ekuna le anexable AA1. Boke wayibalula ngaphambili.
Yes, I've got it. That one in front of me. But Awuku 006 affidavit, it's annexure AA1.
I have it. It's annexure AA1. I have it in front of me, but I don't
15.
have page 06.
Annexure AA1, then there's 15. It's LEA 10006.
yeah, that's the
Annexure
page.
AA1.
Yeah, where it says 006, that's the page number. But when we give you the page, we won't say 006. We'll just say page 6.
Okay, yeah, this is 006.
We'll ignore 00. Okay.
6, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, go to page 16 of the bundle, which is the last page of that affidavit.
Ulake lapha ekhasini 16 lalo mqingo okuyikhasi lokugcina laleyo ncwadi efungele.
Okay. Yes.
You have got
12,
it?
column 13, column 14, column 15.
Go to 16. The last page.
Yes, 16.
Yes. Well, maybe Mr. Haliames will do what I thought you were going to do anyway. Is that signature your signature above the word deponent, Mr. Colonel Mhlongo?
Yes, it's my signature.
Sign wakho lokho igama elithi deponent.
Yebo kunjalo.
That's correct.
Did you sign this affidavit before a commission of oaths?
Ngabe ke leli affidavit walisayinda phambi komuntu onegunya lokuthathisa isifungo.
Yebo kunjalo.
That's
And was that
correct?
And was that on the 9th of May 2019?
Ngabe lokho kwenza ngamhla ka9 kuMay 2019 sayinda kwakho.
Yebo kunjalo.
And
That's
before
correct,
you,
yeah?
and before you signed, did you take an oath?
Ngaphambi kokuthi usayine wasithatha isifungo.
Yebo ngayithatha kwakuKenneth Majozi wayengathi salo.
I did, Chair. The oath was administered by Ken Majozi.
And you had read this affidavit before you took the oath?
Wayifunda le affidavit ngaphambi kokuthi uthathe isifungo.
Yebo kunjalo ngayifunda.
That's correct, Chair. I read it.
And you satisfied yourself that its contents were true and correct?
Wabe usugciliseka ukuthi okuqukethwe yilo kuliqiniso.
Yebo kunjalo.
Okay.
That is correct, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, I'd just like you to turn to page 12 of this.
So cela uye lapha ekhasini u12 Mnumzane Mhlongo.
Mr. Harley, I'm sorry. I just want us to have more or less the same idea of how long we'll be.
I had anticipated that we wouldn't be longer than an hour to an hour and a half. But I think it takes a little, but my estimate always seems to be a little bit more ambitious than what actually turns out to be the case. I would imagine that there's not much to cover in this particular affidavit. And after this, I want to go over to the transcript.
Yeah, do you think you might be able to do by 12:30?
Certainly, it might be a little bit of a stretch, but I'm certainly hoping that we can do it by 12:30.
Okay, I think try your best. Let's see how it goes, because I think the essence to a very large extent has been covered, but just try your best and see.
Are you at page 12?
So fikile ekhasini u12 Mnumzane Mhlongo.
Yes, ngikuyena u12.
Yes, I am.
In this affidavit at paragraph 11.2, you deal with the participation in finding dirt against Nkolisi and Kasana. And at paragraph 11.2.1, you say the following. The source for grounding allegations of participation in finding dirt against Advocate Nkolisi and Kasana is the alleged affidavit by Terence John Jubé. Then you say at paragraph 11.2.2 that Terence John Jubé has denied any knowledge or association with the alleged affidavit set forth by General Boyson in his statement. And you say, attach here with Annexure AA2 in confirmation to the effect that Terence John Jubé had been the author and the deponent of the alleged affidavit as alleged by General Boyson.
Yes.
Makubukwa ke laphayana kuveza ukuthi ngokwencwadi efungele laphayana ku 11.2 okhuluma ke ngendaba yokutholakala kokungcola maqondana nomnumzana Mxolisi Ncasana u2.2.1 bese ke u11.2.1 bese ke uveza ukuthi kunencwadi efungelwe lapha eyalethwa ekuthiwa ke lapha kumnumzana uJubé ekhuluma ngokutholakala kokungcola kumnumzane uNcasana kanti ke bese uveza ukuthi umnumzane uJubé uyakuphikisa okuqukethwe leyo ncwadi eveza ukuthi akaze ayibhale leyo ncwadi eyalethwa ngumnumzane uBoyson phambi kwekhomishana ethena wayethinteka endabeni lokutholakala kokungcola komnumzane uNcasana.
Yebo ngakusho lokho. Ngoba kwakhona affidavit.
Yes, I said that because there was an affidavit by him.
If you turn to page 17, that is the affidavit that you were referring to.
Mawubuka lapha ekhasini u17 iyo le ncwadi efungelwa ukhuluma ngayo.
Yebo.
Yes.
And if you go to 18 at paragraph 3 at the top of that page, you'll see he says the following. I perused the affidavit and saw that my details, is referring now to the earlier affidavit, the affidavit of the 25th of November of 2000.
This is, Mr. Harley, I'm sorry. You say you want to make it clear it's Mr. Jubé talking now.
This is Mr. Jubé talking. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Okay, continue.
It says in the third sentence from the top of that paragraph, I perused the affidavit and saw that my details were contained in the document, as well as a signature which closely resembled mine. I read the contents of the affidavit and did not recognize any of the information contained therein. I did not associate myself with any of the information contained in the affidavit, and it was clear to me that I had not compiled the affidavit. I have absolutely no knowledge of writing anything contained in it. That was the paragraph that you were relying upon in this second affidavit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mawubuka ke ekhasini ku-18 lapha uparagraph 3 phezulu umnumzana uJube uyasho kuleyo incwadi yakhe efungelwe ukuthi ngike ngabona i-affidavit enemininingwane yami nokusayinda ukuthi nokwami bese ngilifunda leli affidavit ngase ngibona ukuthi cha lokho okukhulunywa ngakho kangikwazi akusimina ke owabhala leya ncwadi kanti futhi efungelwe futhi kangiyibandakanye nokuqukethwe kuyo. Ingabe ke iyo le ncwadi efungelwe oyishoyo ke ukuthi iyona le othi kusukela kuyona ingakho ke uthi ubufakazi bamnumzana Jube wabe seyiqhelelanisa nabo lobo babuyamyanisa wena nokwenza okungalungile.
Yebo njalo.
That is correct, Chair.
Now, this particular affidavit, where did you get it from? I'm talking about this affidavit of Terence Jube, which is Annexure AA2 to your affidavit. Where did you get this affidavit from?
Le ncwadi efungelwe kamnumzana uJube u-AA2 ngolapha amaphepha wayithola kuphi?
Incwadi le eyayivesi ikhona nasemaphepheni naku-City Press ukhulunywa ngayo ngeke ngakhumbula ukuthi ngayi-downloada kanjani ngayithola kanjani but yona ngaba kodwa nayo because incwadi kwakukhulunywa ngayo nasemaphepheni.
This affidavit was available and was spoken about even on the media, newspapers such as City Press. I cannot remember how I downloaded it, but it was an affidavit that was available in the media.
Now, but your own knowledge was, you knew that this affidavit, if I understand what you're saying in your most recent affidavit, and I'm talking about the affidavit of 22 February of 2021 that we referred to earlier on. If I understand correctly, you knew that this affidavit of Mr. Jube, the second affidavit of Mr. Jube, you knew that it was false. Correct.
Uma ke sibuka incwadi yakhe efungelwe yangomhla ka-22 kuFebruwari ka-2021 kubonakala ke ukuthi okusukela idweba isithombe sokuthi wena wawazi ukuthi le ncwadi efungelwe kamnumzane uJube esibili yabe ingamanga.
Ngeke ngikwazi ukuphendula lo mbuzo.
I am unable to answer that question, your chairperson.
Why are you unable?
Indaba ungakwazi ukuphendula.
Uthi angiqondi ukuthi mhlambe obuza umbuzo ngabe uqonde ukuyaphi ngawo.
Because I do not understand where the person that is asking the question where he's going with it.
Yeah, but that's not important where he's going with it. What's important is whether you understand the question and whether you have got an answer to the question. You understand the question, do you not?
Yes, I do understand the question. Yes, I do understand the question. Though yes, really, I could not remember. I could not remember where I downloaded the affidavit.
Well, do you want to? Okay, I say because Colonel Mhlongo has decided to speak in English now. Let me refresh your memory. Mr. Halley's question was this. When you denied what Mr. Jube said in his first affidavit, you denied it on the basis that he had signed an affidavit, he had signed his second affidavit, where he was disassociating himself from the first affidavit. So Mr. Halley's question is, when you relied on Mr. Yobe's disassociation of himself from the first affidavit, you knew what the true position was. Is that not so?
Mnumzane Mhlongo, mhlambe ke lapha kuyabonakala ukuthi mhlambe basingabuyela emuva kumbuzo ukuthi ubuqale kuphi ukuthi wena ufike kwaba nencwadi yokuqala kaMnumzane uJubhe, emva kwalokho efungelwe kwase kuba nencwadi yakhe yesibili nokuyilapho ayiqhelelanisa khona nalokho okuqukethwe encwadini yakhe yokuqala. Umbuzo ke lapha uthi ngenkathi wena washo ukuthi uzoncika ekutheni uMnumzane uJubhe usebhakelele incwadi yakhe yesibili. Umbuzo ke uthi wena ngenkathi wenze njalo wawazi vele ukuthi ikona kuphi okuyiqiniso na?
Ikona okwakungidida ukuthi nangu kulala affidavit engangiyidownloadile aphikayo kuyona, kwangidida ukuthi ngempela uBoysen then ukhuluma ngayiphi ngoba uyayiphika lena uJubhe.
That is what I was confused about, because the one that I had downloaded, the second affidavit of Mr. Jubhe, where he distances himself with the one that Mr. Boysen had relied on, it then left me wondering which one was Mr. Boysen referring to.
Mr. Halley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you knew it was false because you were aware that the first affidavit, that which is dated the 25th of November 2013, you knew that that affidavit had in fact been deposed by Mr. Jubhe. You knew that as a fact.
Ingabe ke wawazi ukuthi i-affidavit yesibili kaMnumzane uJubhe iyayingamanga. Into eyayidala ukuthi ukwazi lokho ukuthi wawazi ukuthi okusempeleni le affidavit yakhe yokuqala yayikade ibhalwe wuye uJubhe, kwakuyinto owawunolwazi lwayo lolo olugcwele ukuthi affidavit yakhe yokuqala yayibhalwe wuye uqobo. Ngabe kunjani?
Ngingasho ukuthi kunjalo ngoba yayibhalwe wuye ngoba isignature iyafana.
I would say yes, it was written by him because the signature is the same. When you look at both his affidavits, the signature is the same.
In fact,
one second, Mr. Interpreter. Maybe you could complete your interpretation. He said he knew, I think he said he knew that the first affidavit had been signed by Mr. Jubhe because the signature is the same. Did you hear me, Mr. Interpreter, or are you frozen again?
I seem to be cutting. I can hear portions and others not.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I think
I can hear you. Okay. I was saying, do you want to redo your interpretation? Mr. Canon Mhlongo said, yes, he knew that the first affidavit was Mr. Jubhe's affidavit because the signature was the same. That is the signature in the first affidavit and the signature in the second affidavit was the same.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Mr. Halley?
And in fact, you who had been, you had occupied an office in an NPA building in KwaZulu-Natal, and you had been asked to leave that building because of the first affidavit that became available, which accused you of in fact trying to find dirt against Mr. Nkosana. Is that correct?
Ngabe kuliqiniso ukuthi wena wawukade unehhovisi esakhiweni sakwa-NPA kanti wabe usucelwa ukuthi uphume kuleso sakhiwo ngenxa yalela affidavit lokuqala elalisola ngokubandakanyeka emsebenzini kumbe etulweni lokuthola ukungcola maqondana nomnumzane uNxasana.
Ngizosho njalo ngoba noma ngakuthola late lokho kodwa nje into eyafika kimi kwafika nje umyalezo ovela ePretoria uthi angiphume ngokusheshsha kulama office angisadingeki. But
I would say yes.
Sengithola ke nje okwawile affidavit nala ama recordings ashiwo.
I would say yes, Chair, that is correct. However, I found out later on as to the reasons why I was asked to vacate that space. Because initially what had happened was I received a message from Pretoria saying I should vacate that space or those premises immediately without me knowing the exact reasons as to why. But then subsequently, when this commission had commenced its work, it's only then that I learned that in fact the reason why I was asked to leave was because of that affidavit as well as the recordings.
Ngicela silungise baba. Ngicela silungise. Ngithi mina ngawuthola umbiko ovela head office ukuthi angiphume ema-ofisini. Well, mhlawumbe ngikushilo ukuthi ngenxa yokuthi uNxasane uthi ngihambe ngimphenya yena, ngihlala ngihambe ngifunde into engcolile ngayo ukuze akhishwe esikhundleni. But later ke ila ngathi ngibona le affidavit. Ngase ngibona okay, kulezi kuswela leyo nkulumo ngale affidavit. Oh, izona izakhi lezi ezithi angikhishwe lapho.
Ngicela mhlawumbe ukuzwisisa lapha kwathi waphuma umyalezo wawuvela ePitoli head office.
Yes, wathi uNxasane uthi.
Okay. Perhaps to make a correction, Chair, I was told to vacate that space because I was informed that I should vacate because Mr. Nxasane says I am going around investigating him. I did then vacate, and then subsequently, when I read that affidavit, the first affidavit of Mr. Joubert, and further and connected that to the report that I'd initially received that Mr. Nxasane says I'm going around investigating him, I then saw that this is the reason why I was asked to vacate those premises.
Unless I misunderstand your affidavit, I understood that you had received that the first affidavit on the 26th of November. In other words, the day after you had been asked to, sorry, the day after the affidavit had been deposed to.
Ngaphandle makuthi ke akuzange kuqondakale lokho kushoyo kwincwadi yakhe efungelwe. Kodwa kuzwakala ngathi thona i-affidavit le yokuqala wayithola ngomhla ka-26 kuNovember okwabe kungusuku olulandela lolu i-affidavit yayibhalwe ngalo.
I-affidavit ngiyithole mase ngithola commission. Sekuqala izinto zokuthi ngiya-implicate ku-state capture. Not ngesikhathi ngixoshwa.
I only received the affidavit at the commission when I was now being informed that I have been implicated in the state capture, not at the time when I was dismissed.
Well, if you turn with me to
we have hit 1:30, 1:12, I'm sorry, 1:12. I'll give you another 10 minutes to try and wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to wrap up this particular thing, sir, with reference to this particular proposition with reference to paragraph 18 on page 210.34 of the present bundle. This is your affidavit dated 22 February of 2021. In other words, your most recent affidavit.
Cala siya lapha ekhasini u210.34 oyencwadini yakhe efungelwe yokugcina engumhla ka22 February 2021 sibuke ibinza u18.
Have you got it, sir?
Ndabe usufinyelela
Angithi leyo yokugcina paragraph 34 olothi oqala suddenly.
Not paragraph 34, 210, page 210.34 at paragraph 18.
Ikhasi kuzoba 210.34 bese lapho uzothola uparagraph 18.
Yes.
Yes.
Then you say in that paragraph the next day, and if you look at the preceding paragraphs, paragraph 17, you're talking about the date of the 26th of November 2013. You say the next day I received a telephone call from my supervisor informing me that the NDPP had called and wanted me out of the office because I was digging information adverse to him. I thereafter came to know of the affidavit and the audio recording.
Mawubuka ke lapha kubinza u18 kunenkulumo ethi ngakusasa kanti ke ukuthola ke ukuthi kukhulunywa ngomhla kabani lapho uzobona ukuthi uma ubheka ku-paragraph 17 kukhulunywa ngosuku lwangomhla ka26 kuNovember ka2013 bese kuthi ngakusasa ngathola ke ufika lapha ke usupervisor wami wangitshela ukuthi kutholakala ucingo oluvela ku-NDPP ukuthi kudingakala ukuthi ngiphume esakhiweni ngenxa yokuthi ngangikade ngenza uphenyo ngolwazi olungase lumcindezele yena kanti ke emva kwalokho ngabe ke sengithola ulwazi ngathola ulwazi ngamaqondana ne-affidavit ngokunjalo nalokho okuqoshiwe.
Okay. Ngiyakuzwa lokho. Kodwa ke ngicabanga ukuthi mhlawumbe kuyikona esizama ukuchaza la ukuthi lokhu kokuxoshwa kukodwa but ke lokhu kwe-affidavit sekuvela I only knew the commission when commission started it's where I knew ukuthi kune-affidavit ka-Terence Jubber.
What I'm trying to say, what I want to explain, Chair, is the fact that the issue of me being dismissed is one issue, but as for the affidavit of Terence Jubber, I only got to know about it at the commission or when the commission had started its work.
Col Mhlongo, did you say just now that you wanted us to separate or distinguish between the audio recording and the affidavit of Mr. Jubber?
Ingabe ukuvezele lapha mnumzane Mhlongo ukuthi ufuna ukuthi inkantolo ihlukanise indaba ye-affidavit kanye affidavit ka Terence Jubber kanye nendaba yalokho okuqoshiwe ngesiqopha amazwi.
Yebo ngoba indlela engi-understanda ngayo ukuthi ukuzwa kwami ukuthi ngizohamba angizwanga ukuthi kwase khona affidavit but ngezwe ukuthi umphathi omkhulu uthi ngiyamphenya and then kwase kuqala i-commission kwakhona inkulumo zokuthi khona ne-recordings right up until uBoyzin aqale akhuluma ngayo lento ku-state capture, then it's when ngakwazi nami ngidownload-ke ngifune izinto ngempela ngi-understand lento yanto literally isikhathini because I could not understand
it. Chair, what I'm saying is when I was dismissed, I was told that I was being dismissed because the NDPP was saying I am
That is when he was
investigating
asked to
him.
vacate the office, isn't it? Not being dismissed. When he was asked to vacate the office, isn't it? That's what he's talking about.
Mawukhuluma ke ngokuxoshwa ngabe usho ukukhishwa lapha emahhovisi kumbe ukuxoshwa ngokomsebenzi.
Angixoshwanga emsebenzini kodwa ngaxoshwa ngabuyiselwa emaphoyiseni emsebenzini waka-NPA engangiwenza walivala iofisi wathi akudismisswe labantu from the NPA and go back to emaphoyiseni.
Ngamanye amazwi usho ukukhishwa ehhovisi.
Yes, ukuthi ngiyenza ngithi dismiss I task engangiyenza eyayingaphelile okusafanele ngiyenze ngiphele le eyokufuna laba bantu ababebulalwe ngekhathi sobandlululo. Ngaxoshwa kuwona lo msebenzi because I had to cut ties no NPA.
Chair, I am referring to when we were asked to, when I was asked to vacate the office, when we were then told that we should go back to being under the police. I used the term dismissed because there is a project that I was currently busy with and I had to cut ties with that particular investigation concerning people that were killed during the apartheid.
Okay, I may have misunderstood. Now I understand. Okay, so it looks like the vacation went with him being expelled from the NPA. Is that what he means?
Ingabe-ke uqonda ukuthi ngenkathi ukhishwa laphayana kulesiya sakhiwo sakwa-NPA lokho futhi kwahambisana nokuthi uphume futhi kumbe ukhishwe kwa-NPA ubuyiselwe ngaphansi kwesiphoyisa.
Yebo, ngaka-expellwa NPA.
Okay, right, Mr. Halley?
Yes.
Okay, yes, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Interpreter. Please just interpret that. You know, I sometimes forget because I can understand him. So please interpret.
That's okay. Yes, I was expelled from the NPA.
Okay, Mr. Halley?
The only point I want to make over there, insofar as that was concerned, is that you were aware that the first affidavit was in fact correct, so much so that it had been relied upon as the basis to expel you from the NPA. You were aware of that from the outset. So when you presented the second affidavit of Mr. Jube, it was your intention to mislead the commission, is that correct?
Tule nakho lapha afuna iphuza afuna ukulenza ukuthi ngenkathi wawazi ukuthi incwadi efungelwe yokuqala kaMnumzane uJubeth yayiyiqiniso kangangokuthi kwancikwa kuyo leyo ncwadi efungelwe kaMnumzane uJubeth ukuze uzoxoshwa kwa-NPA. Kanti ngenkathi wena usuthi uzoncika ebufakazini kumbe kulokho okuqukethwe kwincwadi yesibili, wawanzi ukuthi leyo ncwadi yesibili ayisile iqiniso kanti inhloso yakho kwakuwukuthi ukhohlise i-commission kumbe uyiholele ophatha. Ngabe kunjani?
Angiyaphika impela ngithi akunjalo. Enginakho ukuthi yona i-commission iyabona lo fakazi wayo ufaka ama-affidavits amabili angafani. Ukuthi yayifanele khona ikubukisise icheckisise kuyena lo muntu lokuthi ufakazi ongathembekile. I wanted to bring to commission ukuthi yazi bo lo muntu ufaka ama-affidavit amabili angafani okuyicala lephejana. Kwakungani ukuthi kukudileka lawo ma-affidavit achajwe liphejana ngoba awukwazi ukufaka ama-affidavit amabili akhuluma into engafani.
It is not so, Chair. What I wanted to show is that perhaps the commission should look at the fact that here is a witness who's filing two affidavits, which are not, and this person should in fact be charged for perjury. And I wanted to show the commission that this is not a witness who can be relied upon, or is not an honest witness.
And yet what you did instead was to accuse General Boyson of being dishonest, because you said General Boyson should have been aware that in fact the second affidavit had been filed because it was in the public domain. So you didn't say that, as you now put in, that Mr. Joubert was the dishonest one. You were in fact relying upon the second affidavit to prove that the first affidavit was not his.
Kodwa ke okwenzile lapha wena ukuthi wabe usuveza ukuthi umnomzane uBoyson uyena ubufakazi bakhe kufanele bungamukelwa ngoba usukela kwi-affidavit elikuyamanisa nokwenza okungalungile elibese liphikiswa le-affidavit yesibili. Awuzange uveze ukuthi umnomzane uJoubert kufanele athathwe njengofakazi ongathembekile, kepha uveze ukuthi ke ubufakazi bukanomzane uBoyson okufanele kube ukuthi buyachithwa.
Yebo kunjalo, kwakufanele ngiveze lokho ngoba kwasakona kwakusangixaka ukuthi kwakungani ukuthi kuqhamuke yena uBoyson kungaqhamuki uNxasana, uqhamuke yena esezokhuluma nakho enginomlando ongengawuxoxela le-commission mhlawumbe esekungathatha amasonto namasonto ngikhuluma ukuthi kwakungani kuze kwenzeke kanje ngoba manje ngikukhumbula ngiyakuveza ukuthi uqale wakusho uBoyson yena uqobo lwakhe ukuthi angize kuyena ngizokhuluma naye mangafuni uzohamba ayongcolisa igama lami ku-commission.
That is correct, Chair, because another question that then rises as to why was it Mr. Boyson who had to come and say these things and not Mr. Nxasana. I do know why it was done like that, which is a history. If I were to give, it would take a number of weeks to conclude. But what did happen also, I must state, is the fact that Mr. Boyson had said to me I should come to him so that we could talk, and that in the event that I do not do that, or if I do not want to do that, he would go and cause my name to be tainted or to be brought into disrepute at the commission.
Mr. Halley?
I'm going to go over to the transcripts, but I see you've in fact indulged me for an extra 15 minutes.
Yes, but I think we did deal with the transcripts last time.
Part of the transcript, but he didn't respond really to it.
Yeah, no, I think we have dealt with the substance, because the substance really was about the conversation he had with Mr. Joubert, and then of course Ms. Quinn Mhlongo's conversation with him. I think those were the important ones, isn't it?
That's right, Mr. Chair.
Yes, yes. Okay, all right. Let me check whether his counsel would like to re-examine or not. Counsel for Colonel Mhlongo, would you like to re-examine or?
Well, Chair, at this stage, I don't think it's necessary, because the evidence that has been presented was presented in the context of his affidavits, and those affidavits, so it's not necessary at this point.
Yes, yes, okay, no, that's fine. Mr. Halley, unless you have something else, I'm ready to release
nothing further, thank you.
You have nothing further. Colonel Mhlongo, thank you very much for availing yourself to complete your evidence. And thank you to your legal team for their cooperation as well. Thank you, Mr. Halley and your team. We have come to the end of the proceedings for today. We are going to then adjourn. We adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you.